She's sitting in the soil, carefully digging a small hole and placing a seed in, and gently putting the dirt over the top. She's creating an enclosure by creating the space, then she's enveloping by putting the soil on top, and then later as she sees it grow, she'll be observing transformation. So isn't that amazing? She's not just gardening, she's playing and learning in a way that's deeply meaningful to her. Hello and welcome to Demystifying Child's Play, where we unpack the magic of your child's behaviour and explore the powerful world of play schemas. I'm Ruth Verco and I am so glad you're here. If you've ever watched your child endlessly dump toys out of a bucket or carefully line up pebbles on a garden path and thought, what on earth are they doing? You're definitely not alone. Today we're going to talk about play schemas, what they are, why they matter, and how something as simple and as joyful as growing vegetables can nurture these innate urges in your little one. And if you've known me for a little while, you'll be thinking, well, this one was a long time coming because I absolutely love gardening, particularly growing vegetables, and I really enjoy getting kids outside to experience it all. I used to run beginner vegetable gardening classes from my backyard, so if you've got any play or gardening questions after today, please reach out. I would love to chat about them. I'm actually not sure what I like talking about more, play or growing food, when I can combine them together, especially when I can give kids new experiences of getting outside, getting wet, getting muddy, seeing things grow. It's just amazing. Not only can this kind of outdoor play support your child's development, but it might just help them eat their greens too. Does this sound too good to be true? Well, let's dive on in, or should I say, let's dig into it. So get comfortable, whether you're out on a walk, catching a rare moment of quiet, or multitasking around the house. Let's dig in and explore all things play and growing your own vegetables with kids. Of course, through the lens of play schemas. I'm going to be sharing a lot of ideas, but again, don't worry about needing a pen and paper. If you head to the blog and search for this episode 22022, you'll find this episode and all the points I'm about to share written down. So that is, head to playschemas.com, that's play, schemas.com/022. Okay, so let's just quickly run through what are play schemas. Play schemas are those repeated patterns of behaviour that children use to explore and make sense of the world around them. Think of them as the brain's way of running experiments. What happens if I drop this? What happens if I hide this inside this box? Is it gone forever? No, it's still there. What if I line up these tomatoes just so? Understanding these schemas give us a window into your child's play and why they do what they do. And when we support these urges, we reduce power struggles, foster connection, and help our children learn in a way that feels natural to them. So, how does growing vegetables tap into play schemas? This is the magic part. Growing vegetables isn't just about the harvest. Sometimes just the process of getting there is all the learning itself. But if those little seeds do manage to germinate and make it all the way to harvest, you really do have weeks, if not months, of hands-on fun learning and of course, play on your hands, mushed all together with soil and water. Growing your own is a naturally rich, sensory, schema-filled experience. Kids are naturally drawn to dirt, water, tools, and those endless little jobs that gardens offer. So let's get into it and dig into those 10 common play schemas and explore how you might see them in the garden. Okay, as always, let's start with trajectory. So this schema involves an interest in the movement of objects. So in the garden, children might enjoy throwing seeds, watering plants, using a spray bottle or with a hose, and watching water flow through channels in the soil. You can make some really cool seed bombs that you get to throw into the garden, and using a spray bottle is really good for fine motor skills, which is why I love play schemas for play in general, but also in the garden today, because there's so many ways that you're getting your child to move, to learn, and just to play in a really natural way where you're not sitting them down and getting them to practice all their fine motor skills with their hands, and you're not getting them to practice their throwing with a ball. It's just real life experiences. So make sure you have a think about how you can do this with your own child. You could also have a compost toss. I'm not sure about you, but we've always got a bucket inside where we keep all our scraps from our vegetables that we're using, and then they go in the compost bin outside. What you could do is you could stand a little bit away from the compost bin and have a go at throwing the scraps into the bin or bucket from a distance. They might be a little bit icky on your hands. Getting some icky experiences on your fingers is actually okay because there's nothing that a bit of water can't clean. If you're not keen on that ickiness, just do it straight after dinner or straight that next morning when you've got some sunlight again if it's dark. The longer it's in the bucket, I can assure you the more slimy it gets. I can assure you the more icky my fingers feel if I touch it. But getting these hands-on experiences, feeling these different things are really good for kids as they grow. Okay, so if we look directly at vegetables, a growing example could be doing that, throwing the seeds into the gardening bed, or you could use that watering can to see the trajectory of the water as you're watering them. It's a really good way of teaching how to water seeds and seedlings, because seeds need a lot less water than seedlings, and you can drown them by putting too much water in. If you want to know more about drowning seeds and how to really start seeds well, please contact me. I would love to talk about growing from seed. And then if we think about harvesting, your kids could put the harvested vegetables into a collection basket, or if it's safe, you could throw them a short distance to another person. So they might, for example, have a potato that they've got out of the ground, and they might do a little throw to you or roll along the ground that you put in a basket. So it's using them to do real jobs together. Okay, rotation. This schema is all about things that turn or spin. So in the garden, children, I know my children are, might be fascinated by the turning wheels of a wheelbarrow. Quite often we put the wheelbarrow upside down and they can just push and push and push and watch the wheel go round. It may seem repetitive and boring to you, but they're seeing that motion. It's their brain making those connections. Or you could use a compost screw to add air to the compost, or watching a rotary sprinkler go round and around and around and around, and maybe getting a little bit wet in the process. So for an example, when you're growing vegetables, this is when you could be turning the seedlings upside down to get them out of a punnet, or twisting bean vines around a support. It involves gentle hands for both of them, but they're generally a little bit more hardy than you think, and your kids should have ample time to practice again and again and again. And for harvesting, you could be rotating crops like beetroot to remove them from the ground, where you give them a little twist as you pull them up, which means the ones next to them don't get disturbed. Or you could use a tool with a turning mechanism, like a salad spinner, to clean harvested vegetables. Okay, enclosure. This involves creating boundaries or creating spaces. This involves creating boundaries or containing spaces. In the garden, children might build fences around a garden bed, or create borders with stones, or dig small enclosures for their toys. When you're growing vegetables, you could build a raised garden bed together, or you could create small enclosures around individual plants with plant pots or plant collars or crushed eggshells. Now, I can assure you, crushed eggshells are not actually good for deterring slugs and snails. All you need to do is go to YouTube and search slugs and snails going over eggshells, and you will find multiple examples of them just going straight over. But they are great for marking where plants are when you crush them up and put them around where seeds have been planted or where little seedlings are. And if you want, you could ask me about my carrot incident. This is when I may not have marked where I'd planted these. So then harvesting, when you're looking into this, is you could be placing harvested vegetables into containers, or creating enclosures for the different types of produce as you harvest and lay them out. Before taking that proud "we grew this" photo, and if you do, please tag me in it on Instagram at play_schemas, that's SCHEMAS, because I would absolutely love to see what you're growing and cheer you on along the way. Okay, enveloping. This can get lumped in with enclosing, but it has a subtle yet important difference, and this involves covering or wrapping things up, rather than just containing them. So in the garden, children might enjoy covering seeds with soil, or they could enjoy wrapping up harvested vegetables either in big leaves or newspaper, or making blankets for their plants using those actual leaves. Or what you could do is you could use actual blankets if you're needing to cover plants for an early or a late frost. With your vegetables, you could cover seeds with soil or mulch. You could harvest them by wrapping up vegetables such as potatoes in paper or cloth for storage, but it could also look like putting vegetables you've grown into a cooking pot to get ready for a meal. And this is getting them really involved in that harvest to cooking, and then, fingers crossed, to eating them. Okay, transporting. This one is really fun and really easy outside. So what it involves is moving objects from one place to another. So in the garden, children might use wheelbarrows or boxes or buckets to move soil, carry harvested vegetables, move seeds, fill watering cans. Pretty much any place you go from one to another, if you've got something you can use to carry something else in, this really fills the schema. For a vegetable growing example, you could use that small wagon or basket to transport tools, soil, seedlings to the planting area. And for harvesting, you could use a small wagon or basket to transport together the harvested vegetables from the garden to the kitchen. So all you're doing is thinking about how your child can have a real life experience moving things around the garden, giving them a real job so they can feel a part of the family, a part of what's going on, and then get that transporting schema into their system and out of their system. Okay, next we're going to go with connecting. So this involves joining things together. So in the garden, they might like connecting hoses, or building structures out of garden stakes and ties, or planting seeds or seedlings, connecting them with the soil. So when you're growing examples, you could do that connecting plant support, such as trellises, or connecting different parts of the garden bed with pathways. Harvesting, you could use twisty ties or natural materials or rubber bands to connect bunches of herbs or greens that are picked to bring them inside. Or even just holding them together as a bunch, that's connecting them all. You could see if you connect all the same things together, different things. You could talk about how it's easy to carry or hard to carry depending what you're doing. And then after connecting is disconnecting. So if the last was joining things together, this is taking them apart. And I really can't stress enough that these are very individual schemas, as it's where some of the biggest tantrums can lie if a child is working through the connection schema and a disconnection schema kid came into the same room. If you know what trouble can happen. So in the garden, you could let them pull peas off pods or pick leaves off herb stems or off kale or off spinach, anything that you can pull plants off, and teach them how to do it the right way. Because once you've taught them a couple of times, they'll be able to do it on their own, and then they can just be sent out to harvest. I've been having my kids harvest vegetables for me for probably at least under 2, probably 1.5 onwards. Sometimes you just get half a leaf, sometimes you get a whole leaf, but the more you give them the chance to have their autonomy on what they're doing and teaching them the right way, the better they'll be. And then you can just say, hey, we need some green leaves to go into our scrambled eggs. Can you go get some? And they'll go and get it. They're being a part of the family, they're doing that disconnection, and they're just having a lot of fun. Okay, so for example with this is planting when you're doing vegetables, when you're taking your seedlings out from where they've grown in the punnets and you're removing them ready to plant. But remember, your kids don't have to be a part of the whole process. So maybe they just do the disconnection part. They're just taking them out of the punnet very carefully because you're teaching them how, well then you connect them to the soil. So it's involving them in any little part. For harvesting, when you're harvesting vegetables, it's pulling them out from the ground or disconnecting them from the plant or separating different types of vegetables. You can encourage to gently remove spent leaves or flowers from plants as part of maintenance. So it's that deadheading, and it can be really fun to remove them and then throw them, or have piles where you're putting them into buckets. So when you remove the dead flowers from plants, it encourages more flowers to grow. So then you've got more to play with or more to pick to bring inside, or definitely more for those butterflies and bees. Okay, positioning schema. This schema is all about arranging objects in a specific way. So in the garden, children might arrange tools neatly. They might line up pots or create patterns with seeds or plants. So when you're growing, you can grow in rows. For my garden, I have like a few rows, but then we're a bit higgledy-piggledy. But you could put them in neat rows or wobbly lines, or you could do a pattern of which plants you plant. You might plant some carrots, then some beetroot, then some carrots. So there's so much math, science, learning that goes in this play in the vegetables. Or you could make a planting plan if your kids are a little bit older and then arrange seedlings according to that. For harvesting, you can harvest vegetables by size or colour, or you could create patterns with them. Again, take a photo and tag me in it if you do. I would love to see what you're growing. For orientation, this involves exploring different perspectives and viewpoints. So in the garden, children might like to lie on the ground and look up at plants from underneath, or climb on a safe branch and get a bird's eye view down, or look at insects through a magnifying glass. There are so many, hopefully, insects and little creepy crawlies in your garden. If you've got lots, it's showing a really good ecosystem. So see what you can find. You could see how it changes through the seasons, or if you put more plants in your garden, how more beneficial insects come. And you might find those ones that are bad bugs, but if you leave them, then you'll find more good bugs will come to eat on them. So have a go at just playing around with your garden. Again, ask me gardening questions if you want to. So when you're growing vegetables, you could look at the garden from different angles, such as lying on the ground to see underside of leaves, or using a mirror to see different perspectives. You could intentionally create a garden tunnel or bean shelter that they climb under, have some nice shade in the summer, and they can view those plants from below, and also have a little sneaky hut. For harvesting, you could examine harvested vegetables from different viewpoints, such as looking at them from above, below, on the side, using a magnifying glass to see them up close. Some vegetables can be really hairy, some vegetables can be really smooth, some have got lots of different patterns. There's lots of different ways to observe vegetables. Okay, the transforming schema. This involves changing properties of materials. So in the garden, children might like to mix soil and water to make mud. Observe how seeds sprout and grow, or watch vegetables as they change and ripen. So when you're growing vegetables, have a look at how these seeds transform into seedlings. What you can even do is you can put them with a bit of cotton wool inside a little Ziploc plastic bag or inside a plastic container, so you can actually see the little root come out and the leaves come out and see it really growing. You could do that alongside having some planted in the soil, so you can see really close and then you can wait for those little leaves to pop up. There's so much you can do and learn and teach and have fun with seeing them transform. You can also see how they change colour and texture as they grow, with the little leaves and the leaves getting bigger. For harvesting, observe how they're harvested. Vegetables change as they're washed, cut, cooked or mashed. So what you can also do, when we've just talked about those 10 schemas, I've gone through them really quickly, so remember, go to the blog if you want me to go through them again. That's playschemas.com/022 for episode 22. But with any play schemas, sometimes you see them very clearly in isolation, but sometimes you see 1, 2, 3 or 4 that are meshed together. And what you can also do is either the one child is meshing, or if you've got multiple kids with you, you can see how you can put these different schemas together so they can work together, but still creating their own play and going through their own urges of the schemas they want to do. So for example, we'll take 4-year-old Theo. He is looking at trajectory and transportation. So in the garden, he's there with his mum, filling up his wheelbarrow with compost and pushing it across the garden and dumping it out again and again and over. So to the untrained eye, it may just look like mess or chaos or being annoying, but what Theo's actually doing is engaging in the trajectory, the dumping, the transportation, the moving. So these schemas are how he's learning about gravity, weight, balance, effort, being able to keep at something. And what he's probably doing is copying what he's seen a parent or grandparent do, just in his own I'm figuring out the world way. You can support it by offering them child-sized tools, buckets, wheelbarrows, let them have compost to carry, seedlings back and forth as well, and you can redirect them to a better place. So if they're going through any of these schemas, you know if you've listened to the podcast before, you want to be able to let them work it out. You don't want to just stop them because they're going to want to do it or they're going to miss some of these building blocks. But you could redirect them to a better place. If he's just finding soil and dumping it from one place to another and you don't like where he's dumping it, change where he's dumping it or get a different place of soil or go somewhere like the beach where he can really get this urge out of his body, but just moving sand around instead. Another example, if we have a look at enclosure, enveloping and transformation, so you might have 2-year-old Aria and she's sitting in the soil, carefully digging a small hole and placing a seed in and gently putting the dirt over the top. She's creating an enclosure by creating the space, then she's enveloping by putting the soil on top, and then later as she sees it grow, she'll be observing transformation. So isn't that amazing? She's not just gardening, she's playing and learning in a way that's deeply meaningful to her. So I promised at the start this might help your child eat vegetables. So it's the best part is when kids are involved in growing their own food. They're often way more likely to taste it. And all you need is that first little taste. There's a lot of pride in the process and curiosity from that sensory experience. And through all of this, there's often more of a willingness to explore something that they've helped nurture and grow. And then there's truly something magical about a child eating a carrot that they've pulled from the ground themselves, or a sun-ripened warm tomato, or a corn cob straight from the plant. If your child is really involved in the transformation schema, get them involved in planting something that's quick growing, either from seeds or seedlings, like lettuce. But please do not do radishes. Everyone says get children to grow radishes because they grow really fast, but in reality they're not the most exciting for taste buds, and we'd really like to encourage our kids to be able to eat what they plant. Lettuce is a good option. Radish, unless your family is used to that radish taste already, not so much. So, how are you going to spot schemas in your child's play? Have a listen back to those past episodes, but I'll give you a quick rundown now. What you're doing, as I've mentioned at the start, is just keeping an eye out for those repetitive behaviours your child returns to. When they're inside, are they always lining up their toys? That would be positioning. Do they love wrapping things in blankets or putting items in boxes? Enveloping. Are they constantly throwing? Trajectory. Instead of getting frustrated and stopping it, try asking, what is my child trying to learn? Then offer ways to meet the needs safely. Head to playschemas.com/free for a free cheat sheet that outlines these 10 top play schemas. That's playschemas.com/free. So again, if you know me, and if you know my backyard, there's always toys, there's always a bit of mess, there's always things growing, there's always things happening. And for me, I know I don't have endless summers with my children. They're only this age for one summer, and next summer they'll be a little bit older. And then before I know it, they're not going to be home for summer. And so I'm all good about having my garden in a bit of a mess in a bit of a way that's learning. If our tomatoes fail one year, as much as I'd love to bottle all my tomato sauce for the year, I know that I've been learning through them if they get pulled out at the wrong time. But what you can do is think about how your garden is for now, realize it's just in this little blip of time. You may not need that picture perfect Pinterest garden, but instead you could be setting it up with schema-rich spaces. So like having a planting station where kids can pour, scoop seeds and carry watering cans and dig. You could label baskets or pots to help with positioning. You could let them put compost in the compost bin. You could make harvesting a part of play. give them a basket, encourage them to pick, sort, line up their harvest. There's so many ways where you can support your children in playing and learning in the garden. And as always, the big picture with schemas, with understanding them and getting outside, is we want less frustration and more connection. Because when we understand our children's schemas, we can meet them where they're at. So instead of saying, stop dumping out that soil, we could say, let's dump the soil into this bucket. Instead of saying, stop picking up that hose and spraying it everywhere, we could say, let's see what happens when you spin it fast or slow. Let's see what happens to the leaves when it comes from high or low. It's a shift from stopping behaviour to supporting learning, and you can transform your relationship with your child when you're leaning into what they're doing rather than getting frustrated with it. Okay, so if this episode has sparked some ideas or given you a new way of seeing your child's play, I would absolutely love to connect with you. Come and join the conversation on Instagram at @play_schemas, or head over to the show notes at playschemas.com/022 for a full list of these schema activities and veggie growing inspiration. There you can also join my mailing list. And hey, please do remember to tag me on Instagram. I would absolutely love to see what you're doing in the garden. So thank you so much for being here today. Happy growing, and remember, today is a great day to play and to plant. See ya.